Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Live. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show tonight. So we all have psychic abilities, but the way that is presented to many people leaves them a bit confused about what that is, what that means, and how they can recognize it in their own life. So today's topic I'm calling, What's My Channel? Because when you're talking about a psychic ability, you're actually talking about different ways in which we receive information. And it's different from all of us. And one's not better than another versus the other. But I'm going to explain what the experience is so that you can reflect on yourself in your life. And I'm hoping in the chat room, you'll give feedback as to what you think your channel is. And so that you can start tapping into that information to use it to guide you through your life. And so there are four primary channels in which we bring through information. There's clairsentience, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and clairconsciousness. So I'm going to start with brain fart, clairsentience. So clairsentience is tied to the second chakra. It's our ability to feel energy from the world around us. And so when we go into an environment and we feel the vibes in the room, or we walk up to somebody and they just give us a bad feeling, or maybe they give us a good feeling, or there's some tension going on and we can feel that discord in our bodies, it's because we're having a clairsentient experience. In this day and age, many times clairsentience is tied to being an empath, and people that are empathic often utilize that ability of clairsentience. And so to me, those two terms could be used interchangeably. So if you're a feeler, or that's the primary way that you bring information in, notice that, own it, observe it. And so when you go somewhere and it doesn't feel right to you, and that's the key word, it doesn't feel good, or it feels great, listen to that, honor that, and trust and validate that that is the information that you're getting and not just your imagination. Clairaudience is tied to the fifth chakra, or our ability to communicate both verbally and non-verbally. And so people that are clairaudient tend to hear things in their head. So there's our inner voice that, might be talking to us from our inner critic, complaining and whining on the inside. And then there's that soft voice inside that gives you tidbits of information. So if it's the egoic voice, it will sit there in long streams and paragraphs, download all kinds of stuff. But when it's our clairaudience and it's spirit communicating to us, it's usually in a soft whisper. Many times we don't listen to it unless we have gotten to the point where we start paying attention. So as an example, and this is one of my favorite, I'm not particularly the most clairaudient people. Like, that is not one of my primary channels, although in more recent years, it has really escalated into the forefront. And now I have learned to, I don't want to say trust, but at least listen to it, listen and validate. So for example, I was doing a medical intuitive session with a client who had a kidney issue. And so I'm like, I wonder what would be a good supplement for you. and I got the word hydrangea, and that's what it was, hydrangea. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I have hydrangeas growing in my backyard, but what? It seemed extremely random at the time. However, I had taken up the position of listen but validate. And I looked up hydrangea for kidney dysfunction, and bam, it was a thing. It was actually the properties tied to it really fit with what this person was going through on a physical level. So I was like, hydrangea for you. Um, and so now if I get these random things, especially in a session, I just will communicate them, because after a while, especially with the hearing one, after a while, you can start to tell the difference between your own inner voice and the voice of spirit communicating with you. And that just takes time, and it takes practice, and it takes listening to it and validating that that is what you're hearing. Clairvoyance is tied to the sixth chakra. It's our ability to see mental images in our mind's eye. And so to recognize whether, because there are some people that are just not clairvoyant, they're not able to visualize particularly. But if you're a visual person, you would be able to see your car and where it is parked in and around your house in your mind's eye. You would be able to see the face of your mom or your dad or your husband or your wife or your kids or your dog in your mind's eye. And that's how that information comes through. And so, as an example, and I think I shared this story on the show, my dishwasher was backing up, and I tried to call the plumber because it was bad. So I called the plumber, actually it wasn't the plumber, it was the utility, it was the dishwasher repair guy. But it was really close to Christmas, and he couldn't come, and I live in Podunk nowhere, so finding someone to come work is a little challenging at best. But there was a bunch of water sitting in the bottom of the dishwasher that I knew needed to go. Like, my feeling was it needed to go or it was going to stink. So there's me, and I'm sitting on the floor with a bucket and a coffee cup, and I'm trying to scoop the water out, which was not being particularly successful. So I asked myself, well, what would be better? And the first thing that appeared in my mind's eye was a turkey baster. Now, how freaking random is that? But that's what I got. So I went and I got the turkey baster, and I got the whole thing emptied out in about 20 minutes. Win-win on my part. So that's clairvoyance, and so sometimes people have a hard time, again, separating out, is this my imagination or is this real information? And it really is about, and we've talked about this, paying attention to the information that comes in, and then either listening to it and following it, or not listening to it and following it, and then down the road, later that day or the next day or whatever, coming to the realization that you should have listened to that information. And that's really how you tune up these different abilities. The last one is clairconsciousness, and it's a little bit hard to describe, and I can only explain it mostly through an example. But clairconsciousness is the ability to receive information on a seventh chakra level. So it comes in, but it really avoids a lot of your filters. And you just know things off the top of your head. That's the classic line. You know things off the top of your head. Now, I personally have come to the realization that my clairconsciousness is directly attached to my mouth. And so there are times where there's something going on and I will just make a comment. However, those comments are true. Millions of years ago, before I was Rita the Psychic Chick or Dr. Rita, I was working at a job, and the lab manager, I was young, the lab manager didn't come into work one day, which was abnormal, very abnormal. The next day, I walked up to him, crossed my arms, looked him in the face and said, Well, where were you yesterday? Having them checked for a brain tumor? And his face turned white and he walked out of the room for me to find out that was where he was the day before, having them checked for a brain tumor. Oops. You know, so if you have that kind of experience, if you just make a comment and it turned out to be not only kind of true, but like on point, right there true, it's your clairconsciousness. You know, so there's how we receive information in the general sense, but then there's also how individuals are able to process certain kinds of information easier than other kinds of information. So, for example, I work as a medical intuitive. And so it is very easy for me to look at and access information about a person's health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, on intuitive levels. It just comes to me. It's very easy. There's not, it just is. And it took me a long time to realize that all psychics weren't built the same, and not all psychics are able to access that information with that level of ease. On the other hand, there are people that work as animal communicators where they will have like psychic conversations with your pet. And I've done some animal communication more on a very health level for people and like their dogs and maybe their cats, you know, but I don't put any guarantee next to it because it's just really not my thing. Where there are other people, they'll have like these in-depth conversations and give you all this depth and breadth and detail about what's going on with your pet. And so that's just like a different channel, a different way that they vibrate and bring that information in. You know, some people are mediums and they talk to dead people. I choose not to talk to dead people. I think if I wanted to talk to dead people, they'd be hanging all around my house, and I choose to not have them hang around my house. And so I have intentionally chosen not to practice and not to open up that conduit of dead people energy in my house. If it's your house, it's a totally different thing. In my house, ain't happening. You know, some people are really good at looking at relationship dynamics. You know, before I started doing the health related work, I just wanted to be Rita the psychic chick and talk to you about your relationship space. I really enjoy that. You know, because for me, I can look at dynamics between people and how things are interplaying and which is bigger and smaller. And it's kind of similar doing the medical intuitive work. You know, there's a healthy heart and a not healthy heart. There's a healthy heart and there's your heart. And either they like are matching or they're not. And so I can look, compare and contrast what's going on. Same thing, you know, there are some people that are just very good at looking at business related stuff. You know, so there's any topic that you can throw out there and people can be more specialized. I think working as a medium or working as an animal communicator kind of put you in a slightly different category than your traditional psychics, where talking about relationships, talking about health, that's kind of specialized. Talking about business is just, you know, part of life and a bit more common. So I thought, all right, let me look. Oh, all right. You know, so for me, and I've never really talked about this before on air, you know, and I just want to I have 2 more points, throw in, you know, so when I'm doing a reading for somebody, whether it's here on Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise or in a private consultation, you know, there's 2 different things that are going on. So when I'm doing sessions here on air, I'm pulling a card because to me, having a question is the gateway, you know, having a keyword, you know, as if you're looking things up online, you know, you put your thing into the search engine, your keyword or your query, into the search engine, it brings up results. And so because of the format of this show, I use the cards to help me create that keyword, create that question, to look at your energy, compare and contrast, and see what's going on or what's jumping out at me. And it changes from person to person, and I can take the same card and read 2 or 3 people and come up with completely different responses based on their energy dynamic. When I'm working with a client privately, however, I like to know what's going on. I like to know what's the question, where are we trying to go, and then I will backtrack that and start breaking it down into its key components. So sometimes the information comes through very visually. Sometimes it comes through from a feeling, like that just feels bad to me. Sometimes I get those weird messages, the weird messages, and then sometimes I'm just talking and whatever I'm going to say, and usually that comes out really blunt. Oops. But it is what it is. I really can't control spirit. But one thing that I did not mention in my list of channels, and which is what brought up this whole concept in the first place, is the concept of predicting the future. And this was all started because a woman, like Develop Your Psychic Abilities on Facebook or something like that, put up a thing that says, what do you think it is going to be going on next month? I don't know, but it was something about the future, and she suggested to people to take notes and write things down and see how close you get. But predicting the future, to me, okay, and this is just through my belief system, is a very precarious thing. Now, there are some people that can predict the future, but I feel like that information comes through in spurts. It comes through via special circumstances, and it's not like, oh, I woke up and every day and every moment of my day I'm predicting the future. I mean, it's more complicated than that. Where having a feeling can change 500 times a day, where predicting the future is not, it's not that way. Now, when people ask questions that are kind of predict the future, you can look at the possibilities, because people do hold energy in their space of, this is where I'm going and this is what I'm bringing to the table. And so you can comment on those things. Like, I want to start a business. What do you see about it? And so if the person is business minded, if it looks like they've got their act together, if it looks like they have the inner motivation to create this entity, their business, then I will comment in a more positive and affirmative way. But it's not that it's going to happen, but they are bringing the necessary elements with them to make that happen. But there's not anything to say that the next day you might be, going down the street and you get hit by a bus. I mean, when you sit there and look at predicting the future, there are so many variables that get thrown into the mix that it's very challenging, if not impossible. So my little piece of caution is, if you are looking to get a reading and the person claims that they can predict the future, I would maybe steer clear, because, and I think it's interesting because they say that, and then, they tell you, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and that's going to happen as part of their session. And then they don't. And it puts a negative shine on anybody that does intuitive work. And so, I don't know, that's my 2 cents on it. So my question to you, and I hope you'll provide some feedback in the chat room, is what channel do you operate on? Okay. All right. And as always, if you are in the need of getting intuitive guidance, please visit my webpage, soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com. Reach out to me and set up a time for a private consultation. This show is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And you can go there and download. Why does it do that? It always does the wrong one. There it is. My free 50-page guide, Jumpstart Your Intuition. And it's loaded with exercises so you can actually start to tap into these channels, primarily your clairvoyance. The training program really is about developing your third eye muscle. So if you are a very visual person, working on clairvoyant levels will come very easy and naturally to you. Again, appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. If you are listening to the show in a rerun format, if you are listening to it on Spotify or iTunes or iHeartRadio or any of those, and you want to join the fun and get a free on-air psychic reading from me, the best way to do that is go to my YouTube channel. That's Just Energy Radio on YouTube. 3 words, Just Energy Radio on YouTube. Hit the live link at 7 o'clock Central on Thursdays, and you will be able to join the fun. And as always, please do go visit my different social media channels and connect with me. Like, subscribe, sign up for everything I have is free. With my Substack account, I have moved my mailing list to Substack. And so if you just follow me on, no, I think you would need to subscribe. If you subscribe to me on Substack, again, always free, you'll get reminders of things that are coming up in the Dr. Rita world, which is sweet. No, go back on. There I am. Okay. Okay, guys, are you ready to rock and roll? Let's get the party started. God, there's 37 comments. All right, I got to go up to the top. So Ann Lee, you are the first one-in winner. And she says, hi, Dr. Rita, reading number 1, please. Thank you. You sure can, Ann. Okay, and that's your card for today. So, Anne, when I check in with your energy, and I'm going to use a very specific word here, it feels uncomfortable to me, like it's agitated. You know, I'm not sure if the word frustrated would be a correct word to tie to you. Agitated feels appropriate for you. I feel like you are looking to have a different result or a result, and it's just not happening, and you're just not sure how to make that happen. I don't really have particular advice other than to just take a step back, take a breath, and let the universe do what it needs to do, because you being upset and you being frustrated isn't making it move in the right direction at all. Okay. Okay. And then we have ERRT Radio, and he says, hi, Dr. Rita. Happy Thursday. May I have a reading number 3, please? Thank you. You sure can, ERRT Radio. Okay. All right, and that's your card for today. So I'm wondering if there's kind of an energy theme going on the planet right now. Because ERRT Radio, I'm feeling like there's some frustration in your space as well. I feel like you're just tired. I feel like you try really hard, but you're not getting the kind of results you were hoping for. You know, and I don't feel like this has to do with your move. I feel like it has more to do with your personal / work life. And you're waiting for inspiration. You're waiting for spirit to say hydrangea, ERRT radio, and you would be all over it. But I feel like the messages have been far and few between. Again, don't have an answer for you other than be patient. That's all I got. That's all I got. And then we have Christine says, hello, may I get a reading number 2, please, and thank you. You sure can. Hey, you know, guys, I have good hair today, and I'm not hearing any like, oh, Rita, your hair looks so beautiful. Guys, have you fallen out of training already? All right, Christine, let's see, number 2. All right, and that's your card for today. So, Christine, I feel like you have had a glimpse of something new and something different. And I wish I could be a little bit more specific. The feeling on it is that it feels peaceful to you. I feel like you feel like your wishes will come true if you follow this path. I get the impression that you too really aren't getting a whole lot of information, as if the book is being written as you move along. You know, it's not like you're reading from the book, but the book is being written as time goes on. You know, so I want to make the comment, you know, good job. You're going with the flow. I feel like, you know, as things ebb and move and tide, that you're not fighting it. You're going with it and not allowing it to take you under. So good job. Good job on that. All right. Then Unar's here and it says, good evening, Dr. Rita. May I have a 2 tonight? You sure can, Unar. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, Unar, that's your card. And if you're new to the show, this is a mass card, and it usually shows where your energy is blocked, or there's something you don't want to look at, or there's some negative thing going on. And I am just going to pick cards till I feel it clears. Okay, quite a lot of picking here. And I am actually going to go with that card for clearing. But Unar, there was a lot of stuff here. Okay, so let's see what we got going on. So Unar, the first word that I want to put out there for you is doubt. I get the impression, or actually what I'm hearing is, you know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I feel like, I don't know, let's see. Okay, I get the impression that when you are putting a lot of energy into something, that's not working. When you are chilling and not doing stuff, you're feeling like it's not working. I get the impression that you are feeling very much alone. I get the feeling like everything seems like a gamble. I think the biggest thing is that I get the impression that you're just not interested in putting your energy into something that isn't going to work. And I would like to just kind of shift that a little bit, and change the focus from it not working to I'm only going to put my energy into things that bring me joy. And if you do that, then it doesn't matter whether it's what it's doing, because bottom line, it's bringing you joy. And maybe that's the payment you should be looking for, not something more external, but something more internal. And I think if you really focus it and frame your activities on what's going to bring me joy, then what it is will seem more, well, satisfying, but also more forthcoming in what to do. I mean, and as I've talked about before, you know, the energy on the planet has just been challenging, and spirit has not been particularly forthcoming. And maybe, you know, the point is that we need to just be in the moment and really work on taking care of ourselves in whatever way that is, and whatever, without the attachment to it. You know, I mean, when ego's involved, there's an attachment to, well, if I do this, I should get this. But when you do things for yourself, you're just doing it because you want to. You know, my neighbor likes to garden, and he does it because he wants to. And he was trying to give me all these plants. He's like, oh, but you can like do this whole thing over here and it would be beautiful. And I'm like, no, thanks. And he's like, why not? It's like, because it's not fun to me. I don't get any enjoyment out of it, and it would just turn into work. And then I would have to water it and remember to water it, which would be work. And I'm not interested in expending my energy into things that don't bring me joy. And I feel like that's where you are right now, Unar. And so even though it might be uncomfortable, maybe it's a good place. And maybe we are all in this training place together to, again, figure out what we want and how to move forward with that. Thank you for that. And let's see. Oh, that's me. I'm like going, who's that? It's like, oh, wait, that was my comment. And then Amy's here. It says, hi, Dr. Rita. Happy Thursday. Hey, Amy. And then says, may I have a number 2 reading tonight, please? And thank you. You sure can, Amy. Uh-oh. Okay, Amy, what do you got going on? All right. And that's your card for today. So, Amy, the first thing that came to me is that I get the impression that you are viewing life as one giant science experiment. I get the impression that you're just kind of throwing it out there, and if it sticks, it sticks, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I don't feel like there's a whole lot of attachment to it. I don't know. I mean, they kind of went blank on me here, Amy. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that you're okay with it. You know, one of the things that you've been really working on, all right, I'll throw this piece in. One of the things that you've really been working on is becoming more mindful of when those I need to do this and I need to do that, which are all words of the ego, start creeping in and you're like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I don't know. Good job overall. Good job overall. All right. And Marco's here. Hey, Marco. Nice to see you. Ahora's here. Hi, Ahora. Lots of commentary. Marco says he's an empath. He's empathic. Okay. Oh, we got Mr. B and friends. Hey, Mr. B and friends. Ann Lee says, thank you for explaining this information, Dr. Rita. You are so welcome, Ann. Marco says, I can't be in crowds. Walmart's the worst. The worst. Don's here. He says, hi, Dr. Rita. I'm late, but could I get a reading number 2? You sure can, Don. All right. And that's your card for today. So, Dawn, I get the impression that you're in a pretty good place today. And I'm going to pat you on the back. I get the impression that there was at least one, if not a couple of opportunities for things that happened to you, things that happened around you that could have knocked you off balance, that it could have put you into a bad place. And I feel like you didn't, like you were breathing, like you heard my voice in your head. I don't know what you did, but I feel like you didn't go down the rabbit hole. And so if what I'm saying is actually a true statement, then I want for you to celebrate. And actually, I want for you to put in the notes whether that's a true statement so that I can get everyone in the room to congratulate you. Because your tendency is to have something happen, even if it's slight, and to react to it. And I feel like you were unreactive. And that's a huge step. Huge step. Good job. All right. And so, hi, Curtis AO. All right. So, everybody, Curtis says, hi, Rita. I'm new here. Nice hair. See, he's smart. May I have a reading number 2? And Curtis, you sure can have a reading number 2. And welcome to the show. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you come back over and over again. And Curtis, that's your card for today. Okay, Curtis, so this might be backwards, but I'm just going to go with this. You know, so when I check out your energy, it just feels really, and I'm going to say heavy, very strong. I feel like when I dig underneath that there is anger, there has been anger that is kind of sitting in the background, sitting in the recesses that if pushed can be activated. I feel like one of the things that you have really been working on is, you know, and I'm going to say controlling and moderating it, but that's really not a fair way of expressing that. I feel like you've been healing it and been good and much more successful at not reacting in the same way that you did in the past. And so kind of on the surface, your energy is seeming much lighter, much more in control. You know, there's this one little piece that I'm seeing it, but I'm not sure how to describe it. Oh, so much more in control, even though there's like a lot of really stupid people that it would be nice if you just like got pissed off at them. But I get the impression that you don't like you in that place, thus the change. And you like yourself better, even though people irritate the crap out of you. Join the club, dude. Join the club. All right. Unar says, immediately felt bad vibes at age 13, meeting my cousin's husband saved me from abuse. I knew right away when our eyes met. It was scary. I made sure never to be alone with him. I think it saved me. But see, that's a really good hit on that clairsentient vibe and then acting on it. And it probably did, especially if it was that bad and that dark and that heavy. And then she says, it was like an alarm went off, but it at least you listen, and that's the important part. Then Curtis says, hi all, been wondering about being and grounding, also how the personality is magnetic. Are emotions literally magnetic? What do you think? So Curtis, you're on YouTube. Do me a favor, Curtis. I know that you're new here and I'm already asking you a favor, but go to my website, soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com. And you don't have to buy anything, although you might want to look around and send me an email with those questions, because that's a really good show topic that I would love to cover. Okay. And then O'Hora says, hello, dear Rita, nice haircut. Thanks for the talk. Would you please share your wisdom on how an empath can avoid being touched by other people and other beings' pain and hardship? And O'Hora, that's a great question. And so here's my answer. When you're sensitive to energy, you're sensitive to energy. And so there are situations that you can go into where you can set up protection and block the energy to make the environment more palatable. You know, so for example, again, hate Walmart. But when I go in there, I take a nice deep breath and I kind of put my little energetic blinders on and I try to go in there and do what I need to do and get out, because it becomes overwhelming too fast for me. And then I get cranky, and that's just not a pretty thing. And so we can protect ourselves in specific situations for finite periods of time. But if you're going to be in an environment for a really long time, then it's, you know, I hate to say that, but it's almost impossible. I think a lot of people, especially these days, are finding isolation a whole lot easier and are choosing to not allow themselves to go into situations that leave them feeling uncomfortable. And they're choosing their peace, their inner peace, for socialization. You know, being an empath, it's a blessing and a curse. You know, it gives you lots of good information, but then you have to deal with the feeling part. And you don't want to turn it off, because if you sit there and block that energy, if you block the energy from coming in, then all of the energy is blocked from coming in, not just the bad energy, it's all the energy. And you don't really want to do that. All right. Curtis says, seems impossible to predict the future if you believe in free will. That too. All right. ERRT Radio says, I mostly connect on the terrestrial plane, but I have times when I receive a message from the universe. Cool. Then O'Hora says, would you please help me with your wisdom revelation? I wonder what field of work I should choose from a percent direction to have more chance of success. Okay, so O'Hora, that's like asking a specific question, which I only will do the cards. If you would like to ask me, so I am looking, okay, and I haven't quite worked out, I haven't figured this out. I am looking at a way to set it up where you can give me a little something, something, and you can ask specific questions like that at a very low cost that I will respond to in this format. I don't have that set up. So at this time, you would need to set up a private consultation. And I don't mean to be mean, but I have to have that boundary. All right. So Unar says, I'm a dream premonition channel. Does that count? And Unar, that totally counts. I've had a couple of premonition dreams. I'm not a dreamer per se. So people that have like sleep issues or dream issues, I can't really help them because I have no experience, because this is me. I go to bed within like 5 minutes. I'm like out cold. Two things will wake me up: if I have to pee or if I'm cold. And it used to be that I would go to bed, and then at whatever time in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, my eyes would open, and it was just like, nothing. So, yeah, but I have had some precognitive dreams, and those I do count, but it's not that you're having them all the time and every single minute, which is my comment from earlier. Curtis says, I'm going to follow you on Twitter. That would be cool. The best place to catch my material, again, is on Substack. And I'm Dr. Rita Louise on Substack. I post to that every day. And I post my new articles and stuff. I post on there quite a bit. Then O'Hora says, would you please help me with your... All right. And then Ann says, thank you. Your reading was very accurate. You are so welcome, Ann. Thank you for coming. O'Hora says, okay. O'Hora wants a number 2. Okay, O'Hora, I'm just doing a number 2. And we'll just see what comes up, okay? Tell you what, these cards are just not shuffling good today. All right. And that's number 2. Or your card. So, Hora, the first thing that you're showing me is that your energy just seems really pushed out in front of you. I'm not feeling like you are being particularly receptive. Now, I can understand, you kind of talked about job things or, work things where our fears or our anxiety or around money or our desire to work and be busy can put us into that energy dynamic, but it kind of takes us out of receiving mode. And so if there are multiple possibilities sitting on the forefront, then maybe it's time to shift somewhat from that I'm sending my energy out to I'm sending my energy back in. If there are positions that you've applied for, perhaps, and we've talked about this, perhaps give the company, and it can be as generic as you visualizing the name of the company in your mind's eye and giving it a grounding cord, which would be a line of energy that goes from the image, whatever you see that as, down to the center of the planet. So it clears out any static energy in their space with relationship to you. So that might be something good to try to see if it opens a channel up for things to move forward between you and these possibilities. Okay? All right. Marco says, before I leave, Marco, you can't leave. You just got here. Rita, your hair. Wow. Thank you, Marco. Love you. And then ERRT Rating says, thank you, Dr. Rita. Makes sense. You're so welcome, ERRT Rating. And then he says, your hair does look amazing as always. Thank you. I don't know. There are some days it doesn't look that great. And then Don said, I love you guys. Yes, your hair does look fabulous, darling. And then Curtis says, is being psychic about sensing the flux in the world and attempting to translate it? So the psychic part is about the sensing, and it's not necessarily the flux in the world. It could be, you know, your pet or a different person or a building. I mean, it's not about the world. But when we bring that information in, one of the things that happens is that we have to, and I like to use interpret, we have to interpret what that means. And so people that, all right, and I'm going to be a little big-headed here and mean, you know, people that are good psychics are able to separate their own life and their filters from the message and just receive the message. There are a lot of other psychics that they get the message, but then it gets clouded with their own judgments, and it is not as, in my opinion, as accurate because there's too much of their personal inside. But it really is about taking that energy and interpreting it for what it is. But yes, pretty much so. Christine says, thank you for the reading. Very on point. As always, great hair. You're so welcome, Christine. And then Unar says, nice read. Thank you. I was scared at first. I need to listen again while walking outside. Thank you. And your hair is beautiful tonight. Thank you, Unar. And then Don says, yes, you're right on. I almost went that way. And I'm thinking I heard you. Oh, Don, wait. And I'm thinking I heard you in the back of my mind. That helped me out. You know, I have to tell you that there has to be, I don't know how many people walking around on the planet with my voice in their head. Now, what do you think about that? So, Dawn, thank you. I have done my work. Thank you, Grasshopper. Amy says, spot on tonight. Again, thank you. Heading to the tip jar. Yeah, and so you guys, you know, if you want, you can go. Oh, and Amy, I changed this. You can go to soulhealer.com/live. But if you go to the Soul Healer webpage, up on the top menu bar, it says Dr. Rita Live. And that'll take you to where the tip jar is. And so if you want to leave me a little something because you love me, I would appreciate that. Curtis says, thanks, Rita. I admit I tend to think people have very transient focuses in life. It does bug me. Thanks for your insights. You're so welcome. And then PD Junior Cartwright. Wow, finally caught you live. I used to watch your videos 20 years ago. Well, hey, PD. Nice to see you. I mean, all of these shows are recorded and you can find them on my YouTube channel. They're there every week. But it is so great to have you here live after 20 years. You know, I've been doing this work way too long, but thank you for coming. Horace says, will you please help me with, okay, all right, KJG. Oh my gosh, what a week. I stumbled across your live by accident and you told me I was coming into my true authenticity all week long. Wow, I need a longer session this week, I think. Number 3. Well, and again, you can go to my webpage, soulhealer.com, reach out to me for a private consultation, and we can get something set up. But for today, let's do a number 3. Okay. All right, KJG, that's your card for today. And KJG, if I like screw those letters up and say them in the wrong order, just forgive me. Let's see. Okay, good. So KJG, I feel like you have a goal. There is like a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like you have finally stumbled upon. I think that's a good way of saying it. Something to go for. I feel like it is resonating with you and your soul and your heart. And I feel like even though you haven't started working on it yet, per se, like in a physical forward active motion, I feel like you are getting things lined up in the background, doing some investigating, doing some legwork in preparation to start moving forward on this thing. I get the impression that you're you're pretty systematic, and this is how I approach things, and they need to be in a correct order for them to feel right for me. And again, I feel like you're getting your ducks lined up in the row so that you can move forward in a manner that feels good and organized for you. So cool. And then ERRT Radio says, great show and topic. Excellent reading, Dr. Rita. Please have a great weekend. You too, ERRT Radio. And then O'Hora says, Dr. Rita, many thanks and blessings to you. And to you too, O'Hora. Well, and you know what? It's perfect because it's that time. So anyway, guys, if you need to reach out to me, please go to my webpage, soulhealer.com. You can check out my services. All of my books are listed on there. I've included a bunch of new articles under the healthy living section. And you can go to Dr. Rita Live and leave me a little something in the tip jar. Anyway, so till next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Thursday Night Live. Be blessed.